Okay, so here's the thing, guys, is that in order for us to walk in freedom from sin, we have to understand something first. Because we were born into sin. We were born under the curse of sin and the law and death, right? And actually, we were born corrupted, not by choice, right? So we didn't really have a choice in our sinfulness. Even if we abstained from sin, we were still sinful in our hearts, from forever. Now, this was true for every man pretty much that was born, except for Jesus and except for Adam and Eve. Now, Adam and Eve sinned, but they sinned in a different way than we sinned. You see, they weren't really ignorant. And not only that, they were not sinful. There was a time when they were uncorrupted, right? They were sinless. So when they sinned, it was completely their choice. They couldn't blame it on the fact that they had a sinful nature, right? So the question we have to ask ourselves is, why did Adam and Eve sin in the way that they did? Because right now, we are all standing in their same shoes, in that we have been redeemed by the blood of the cross. We have become a new creation. Now all old things have passed away. Behold, all things have been made new, which means that our nature is not sinful anymore, you see. And since our nature is not sinful anymore, we all stand in Adam and Eve's shoes, in that we do have a choice whether or not we're going to follow and obey God, or do what Adam and Eve did and sin against God. And this is very, very interesting, because then that means we have to understand how Adam and Eve were deceived. And one of the things about Adam and Eve was that, yes, they were sinless. They didn't have a corrupted nature yet. But clearly, they did not have the fear of the Lord. Because the fear of the Lord is the hatred of evil. And so if Adam and Eve hated evil enough, they would have simply obeyed God at his word, and they wouldn't have sinned against God, right? But just like little children, even though they might be pretty innocent, is that they don't yet understand what it means to fear their parents' commandments. And by fear their parents' commandments, I don't mean be afraid of their parents or to obey them out of fear of punishment. I mean, they don't understand what it means to know that their commandments are perfect and there to protect them. So the point is that when we were children, there were times that we did not do the right thing, right? There were times that we might have gotten mixed up in things that we weren't supposed to be involved in, right? And it might have seemed innocent for a while, but eventually it got to a point where we realized that we were in a bad situation, that the things that we were doing were not good, and the closer we got to those bad things, the more icky and wrong it felt, right? And so the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes the closer we get to evil, the more we realize how much we hate it. But before we experienced it, we did not yet know exactly what it was. But once we experienced it, we said, nope, not for me anymore. And we turned the other way and we repented. Now, I believe it was similar for Adam and Eve, was that they did not yet, even though they were sinless, they did not yet fully understand what it meant to hate evil, because they had never experienced evil yet. So now here comes the serpent and he tempts them, and they are led astray into evil. And just like children who are led astray into evil, finally they had a concept of what evil is. And now they could start to hate it more the more they experienced it. Just as children may experience something bad or wrong and repent and turn the other way. And Adam and Eve had to have this experience, I believe, in order to know God. Because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all knowledge. And so just like Adam and Eve had to go through that, so are we here in the world with God. And sometimes we do go astray, sometimes we sin, sometimes we go against God's commandments. But once we experience the evil for what it is, after we follow after it and get closer to it, we're going to experience it for what it is. We're going to hate it because we realize that we actually hate the same things that our Father hates, that we hate what is evil. And that's what the fear of the Lord is. And so once we learn that lesson, it actually draws us closer to God, since we have forgiveness in Jesus Christ. And it helps us come to a better understanding and knowledge of who he is. Right? And so as we're walking this thing out with Jesus, we do have to understand that, we're not always aware of what's going on. Sometimes we're ignorant. Sometimes we make mistakes. But even our mistakes will teach us more about what evil is, and we'll hate it more and actually grow in the knowledge of God more. But the truth is that we don't have to be like Adam and Eve. We don't have to be like children who need to test their parents' commandments for them. We can be children that completely trust in their parents' commandments and gain knowledge by being united with them and obeying them only. We do not have to sin and follow after deception to find out, their commandments really were good and they were trying to keep us from evil, and we don't really like evil. We're realizing that now, and we don't want to do this anymore. So if we want to be trusting children, we would just obey without needing to see the consequences of evil.